Y'all, it's safe to say that the 3-hour Smackdown and just the Smackdown experiment in general has absolutely failed. I don't even have it in me tonight to rage, to yell, to do anything of that nature, because this was just a horrendous episode. Nothing happened, it was boring, it was meaningless, and every single segment and match was executed horrendously. It just was. There's no other way to go about this anymore. I can't make excuses for this. There's just nothing to say anymore. It's done. It's done. They start off the show with absolute nonsense, and they ended with absolute nonsense. And the simple fact is about SmackDown now is that not only is 3 hours just a waste of our time, but on top of that, along with it being an absolute waste of our time, this show in general has nothing of meaning that occurs on it week to week. And quite frankly, I think I'm done watching the show. Like, at least in terms of watching it for more than an hour, I'll tune in, like, for the first hour and some change, like I normally do, and then I'm just gonna shut it off. That's what I usually do. I watch the first 2 hours, come on, make the review, and then check back to see what happened in the last segment or two, and then there's your review. That's it, because I'm not sitting through this garbage for 3 hours. This is atrocious. You know what I'm saying? It's absolutely embarrassing at this point. They have no meaningful storylines. They have no stars. The commentator, Joe Tessitore, is atrocious on commentary in WWE. He just is. He's had a couple great moments in like the last 5 months or whatever, but overall, it's been an absolute and utter disaster. There's no actual intrigue to anything he's saying. He has no passion or energy behind what he's saying, except for maybe a couple calls a show. And on top of that, the crowd had zero energy tonight in San Diego. This was boring, it was lifeless, it was empty, and it was absolutely meaningless. You cannot sit here and make 3-hour shows that nobody cares about. It's embarrassing. So without further ado, let's get into this episode and just break down by this is probably one of the worst Smackdowns I've ever seen in my life, if not the worst. I mean, it really is just sad. I mean, again, before I get into this opening segment, nothing on this show tonight had anything of value. Nothing was meaningful. Nothing was good. The in-ring work was not good. The promos, if there even was any, I don't even remember if there even was, they weren't good. You know, the actual wrestling itself was just very bland and stale. And we're going to talk about the main event with Tiffany Stratton and Bayley. This just wasn't good. What happened here, man? You know, the booking of it was decent. It was solid. But the actual in-ring execution was just very bad. Now, anyways, let's start off the show. We had Rey Mysterio who came out to a great pop from the crowd. You know, this is the only time they actually sounded like they were alive all night here in San Diego. Rey Mysterio basically comes out and he declares that he is going to be entering the Royal Rumble, okay? Rey Mysterio will be inside of the Royal Rumble, and he basically brings up the fact, you know, how grateful he is to be back here in San Diego, and he brings up how he won the Rumble before back in 06, which was cool, and ended up winning the world title after that, obviously, and he brings up how he did all of that for Eddie Guerrero. You know what I'm saying? Rest in peace to Eddie Guerrero. And, you know, that's basically the gist of what he was saying in his promo before he was interrupted by Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens basically comes out and says, Rey Mysterio, there's no one I respect more than you in this entire business. And I want to fulfill my dream of not only now, you know, now I'm the WWE champion, but I also want to be able to 1v1 and beat you at WrestleMania for my WWE championship. KO's obviously being delusional or whatnot. They go into the ring, they start talking absolute nonsense. Rey Mysterio basically says, you sound delusional and dumb, kind of like my son Dominic. And then, you know, that gets a good reaction from the crowd, obviously. And then Kevin Owens says, how can you call me delusional? You saw me win at Saturday Night Main Event, yada, yada, yada. And then Kevin Owens gets super upset and triggered and then starts trying to fight Rey Mysterio. They brawl for a little bit. Rey Mysterio kicks him out of the ring, and that's the end of this segment. This sets up Kevin Owens versus Rey Mysterio later on in the night. Now, obviously, another thing that happens after this is we obviously have to get our mandatory Cody Rhodes random segment with Nick Aldis. All this dude does on SmackDown is talk with Nick Aldis and then talk about respect and love and care. Kind of like what Kevin Owens just did with Rey Mysterio. Everybody now in these feuds, this is why feuds and matches week to week don't matter and don't mean anything. Because number one, every single wrestler that's about to fight another wrestler basically just goes on and talks about how much they respect them and how much they love them and how much they love each other and they respect each other and they have so much care for each other and they wouldn't be there without each other. I'm sick of all this buddy-buddy garbage. You know what I'm saying? When Randy Orton came down to the ring as a heel, for example, did you ever hear him go like, oh yeah, Triple H, I love you, I love your family, I respect you, there's no one else I look up to you more. You know, like, what are you talking about? There's no one else I look up to more, you know what I'm saying? It's just a joke, you know? It makes absolutely zero sense. When Edge was in here and he was a heel, was he ever going up to people and going like, hey, I love you, man, I respect you, man, I don't know if I'd be here without you, I look up to you the most out of anyone else in the entire industry. Like, no one does this. If the heel doesn't really care about being a heel, why should we care that they're even out there? I don't care that Kevin Owens is out there. Cool, he went out there and fought Rey Mysterio in a boring and bland match. And, like what is there to say about that, But anyways, then we get backstage to Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis is basically saying, Cody, I need you to sign this contract. I'm going to go to you each individually, you and KO, to sign this contract to set up your guys' match at Royal Rumble for the WWE Championship. And the simple fact is that Cody Rhodes at this point has become an unmitigated jobber. The WWE Champion has been relegated to doing a mandatory 30-second backstage segment with Nick Aldis every week, a 30-second random brawl outside in the ring, maybe a minute long, and then a 4 or 5 minute promo where he basically says absolutely nothing and bores the crowd to death for about 5 to 10 minutes of his time. That is basically all he's relegated to be doing, and then he wrestles once every 4 or 5 weeks when he feels like it. That is all Cody Rhodes' championship reign has been. It's, I respect you, I love you, I care for you. And then next week, it's, man, Nick Aldis, I'm tired of you talking to me like that. I want Kevin Owens next week in this ring. And then the next week, it's him and Kevin Owens in the ring. They say absolute nonsense to each other. KO shows up in the arena, and then Cody Rhodes is stuck in the ring talking about, I don't want to be a martyr, to be the martyr, that dusty. And then the fourth week, it's the week before their official match, and then Cody will go out there and brawl. His music hits, they brawl for 30 seconds, and then the night before Royal Rumble actually happens, it'll be Cody Rhodes coming out and basically cutting an actual promo, and the promo will probably be mediocre again, and they'll just basically be talking about, I'm going to beat you, and I'm going to finally shut you up for good. I can't stand you, but I respect you. And then Kevin Owens will respond with, you ain't got nothing on me. I'm going to beat you and finally take back the title that I never lost yet, that I earned. And that's going to be that. Every Cody Rhodes promo, every feud, every match, every build, every segment is the same thing. It's the same thing. I don't even have energy to rage at this. It's the same stuff. You see it for yourself, and there's nothing to debate about it. Then we get Bianca and Naomi versus Candice LeRae and Nia Jax. We get the same combination of matches pretty much every single week. This episode is the same thing. It's no different. Every single week on SmackDown and Raw, you get the same collection of matches. On Raw, it's like the collection of the Judgment Day members versus like Damian Priest or something like that, right? Or it's a mid-card match with like the PFC versus like Kaden Carter and Katana Chance. Or it's Lyra Valkyria versus like some mid-card jobber. Or Dakota Kai versus a mid-card jobber like Shayna Baszler, or undercard jobber like Shayna Baszler or something like that. It's the same stuff. Rhea Ripley, random garbage promo, it just is what it is. It's the same matches. Then you get the SmackDown, it's the same stuff. Garza versus Motor City Machine Guns, DIY versus Motor City Machine Guns, undercard matches, Carmelo Hayes will fight some random mid-carder. Like tonight it was Jimmy Uso, and it was Braun Strowman. One night it'll be like someone else like LA Knight or something, Andrade, Shinsuke, who was nowhere to be found on this show. Your U.S. champion's nowhere to be found, but LA Knight was there doing nothing as per usual. And then obviously, and it's not even that LA Knight does nothing per usual. It's that going forward, he's going to be doing nothing. The last month, he's done absolutely nothing, and it's going to continue to be that way. No matter how many great promos and good matches LA Knight has, he will never get booked like a main eventer that he truly has the talent to be. It's not going to happen, and I've accepted it now after they've officially announced that next week he's going to be fighting Tama Tonga in a match. How do you get from being the U.S. champion and fighting to get your title back, and then all of a sudden now you're fighting Tama Tonga in a meaningless match in SmackDown in Austin, Texas? You see what I'm saying? It's over. It's absolutely over. You get the same collection of matches every week because, number one, the same amount of people wrestle every single week. No one new is wrestling, and the roster sucks, so you have to cycle through the same tag teams. You ever notice how it's always Pretty Deadly versus someone, or Los Garza versus Pretty Deadly, or Motor City Machine Guns versus DIY, or Los Garza versus, Motor City Machine Guns versus Pretty Deadly? It's the same collection of tag teams. The Street Profits are nowhere to be found. Apparently, they're still injured from the backstage attack, but a week after the attack, they were wrestling in the ring versus Garza or versus Motor City Machine Guns. It was one of the two matches they had versus one of those two teams. But now all of a sudden they're injured and they can't compete. Do you see what I mean? None of this makes any sense. They recycle the same tag teams because there's no depth in the tag team division. They keep on giving us these lies. Oh, the women's division's the best it's ever been. The men's division's the best it's ever been. The roster's incredible. We have so much depth. No, you don't. If you have so much depth, why are we seeing the same collection of wrestlers and matches every single week? It's the same stuff. Naomi and Bianca have fought Candice LeRae and Nia Jax. The combination of those four wrestlers have competed with each other at least 5 to 10 times in the last 4 months alone. So why are we pretending like this is new content? It's the same thing. Bianca and Naomi beat Candice LeRae and Nia Jax. No one cares. You don't care. I don't care. The point of this is it's to show you guys how much we really get the same content in the same exact match or collection of matches for such a long period of time. It's okay if we're going to get similar matches over maybe a year span or a year or two span, but why are we getting the same exact collection of matches so much in such a short time span? And you wonder why you can barely draw 1.5 million viewers anymore on Smackdown. But back in the day, even a year ago to this point, on Fox, you were averaging like around 2.5 million. So how do you get from 2.5 million to 1.5 million in the span of a year? But business is booming though, allegedly. Those Fortnite engagements and those little Prime engagements and all these other sponsorships, endorsements, all this other garbage. Yeah, it makes you money, but does it make you a good show? No. Something I'm starting to realize while I'm watching these shows is that the crowd just has no idea what actual great content is. Like, they just don't have any idea, right? Like, every single week, you'll see that every match usually on SmackDown is either bad or mid at best, with an occasional match that usually involves Andrade, LA Knight, or Carmelo Hayes is usually, like, solid or pretty decent. You know what I'm saying? But somehow, some way, every single match gets a "This is awesome" chant now. They chant "This is awesome" to basically anything. The chant has lost its meaning because they're just chanting stuff. Lost Garza versus Motor City Machine Guns gets a "This is awesome" chant. B-Fab versus Piper Niven, I'm sure if that match would have gone on for 3 more minutes, we would have gotten a "This is awesome" chant. Like, really? You know what I mean? It's very embarrassing what they get away with now, bro. And because they're chanting "This is awesome," WWE and Triple H, they're like, "Oh, well, this is good. This is amazing. The crowd loves it." But they don't know how to judge good content. So therefore, when they're saying "This is awesome" to the Candice LeRae and Nia Jax versus Bianca and Naomi part 57, and they're chanting "This is awesome" at basically nothing, now all of a sudden you have it think that the crowd actually likes this stuff and that this is good content. It's not good content. It's not. I can't believe this fan base is chanting "This is awesome" at one of some of the worst matches on TV that we've seen in a long time. It's embarrassing. Then we get to Jimmy Uso versus Carmelo Hayes. Before this match, Jimmy Uso basically cuts a promo backstage saying that Big Jim is him. And then he goes out to the ring and Carmelo Hayes comes out and he cuts a good promo. Carmelo Hayes basically walking up to the ring and he's like, your brother's challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Roman Reigns just got the Ula Fala back and is headed to the Royal Rumble. And what do you have? You ain't got nothing. So lace your boots up, Unk, and get ready for me to prove why I'm really him. Bum. And that's pretty much that. It was a pretty good segment, pretty good promo. Melo Hayes is just great. Really talented wrestler in and outside of the ring. And, it's just unfortunate that they're not doing anything with him because this is just what it is. Triple H has no idea how to handle talent. And that's why we consistently get the same collection of matches, the same results, in the same segments. This match with Jimmy and Carmelo, I actually really enjoyed. There was a funny part where Jimmy Uso took his glasses off. He took Carmelo's glasses off as the match started and then wore them and danced with him and then slapped him in the face. Really, really funny stuff. But as the match actually went on, Jimmy Uso was doing the Uso in the wind, which is basically the whisper in the wind. He missed it. Carmelo Hayes hit the first 42, like the code breaker looking move. He caught Jimmy off the top rope doing his splash, and he caught him on that, which was cool. Melo did the springboard DDT thing that he usually does, which was good. But the match ultimately ended up with interference from the Bloodline. But I will say this actual match itself, before it was interrupted by the Bloodline attack, this was easily my favorite part of the night, and it still was by the time the show ended. This was entertaining. It was funny. It had a good lead up with the 2 promos that Jimmy and Carmelo cut individually, and this was very well done. I actually wish they would have just done a normal match and have one of them win and just move on, honestly. I mean, this was pretty enjoyable. But then we had an attack. The Bloodline basically came in. Jacob Fatu beat the crap out of Jimmy Uso, same with Tama Tonga, and they just beat the crap out of him. And then we waited for Solo, as Solo basically, his music hit. He came down into the ring, and apparently during commercial break, the crowd was still booing him as he tried to talk, and so Jacob Fatu was trash talking the crowd or whatever. And then we get back into the actual live programming, and basically Solo Sikoa lifts up the mic. They continue to boo him. He puts the mic down, drops it, and just walks away. He just leaves. They advertise Solo showing up and dealing with everything that went down. He just picks up the mic and leaves because there's nothing to really say anymore. There really isn't anything to say. Jacob Fatu then proceeds to pick up the mic and basically cuts a promo where he's intense. He's irate. He's basically like, you guys thought I was insane. You guys thought I was just some crazy goon. You know what I'm saying? Your boy Jacob Fatu is insane. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a beast. And we just getting started. That's basically the gist of what he's saying. Basically saying he's a savage. They're just getting started. They're going to start beating people up and they're going to show everyone who the real beasts are. What the Bloodline really looks like. He basically brings up, he's like, yeah, man, y'all don't care if y'all boo us. I don't care if y'all cheer us, but you gonna respect us, and I'm gonna show y'all what it looks like when you mess with us, some stuff like that. And that's basically it. Then LA Knight and Braun Strowman basically come out, brawl with him and Tama Tonga, brawl with Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga for a second. There's a face-off with Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman. The crowd, kind of gives it a pretty good reaction. And then basically, we're getting Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu at Saturday Night Main Event. Now, obviously, at this point, we all know that Saturday Night Main Events are absolutely atrocious. They've only had one, and this one that they're about to have next week is shaping up to be absolutely horrendous. In what world, on a special show, a special programming, or a PLE-esque content, is Jacob Fatu fighting Braun Strowman, and that's actually a credible match that we want to see? Do you know what I'm saying? If this is like a hardcore match or a street fight, then maybe. But just a normal 1v1 between these two that we know Jacob Fatu ain't losing? Are you serious? Come on, man. This is ridiculous at this point. They're just throwing stuff on Saturday Night Main Event. And then next week, we're getting LA Knight versus Tama Tonga. Again, I've already said what I need to say about LA Knight. I've already said what I need to say about people like Montez Ford and the Street Profits. They're never going to get their just due, and it is what it is. Los Garza then fights Motor City Machine Guns. The Motor City Machine Guns win this match. Pretty Deadly tried to make them lose, and they failed. Nobody cares about this anymore. The Motor City Machine Guns are wrestling every single week against the same two teams. So why does this matter? Next week, they're going to fight against Pretty Deadly. Actually, they are. Like, what? Nobody wants to see this stuff anymore. Give us new content. Give us new faces. Give us new feuds. Give us new storylines, new matches, new programming. And please take off the extra hour from this show. You gave us an extra hour just to give us less Street Profits, less LA Knight, less Cody Rhodes, and then give us more Pretty Deadly, more DIY, more Motor City Machine Guns, and more Piper Niven, and more B-Fab? Is this a joke? B-Fab versus Piper Niven was next, and this was awful. It was an awful match. The crowd has just officially died pretty much after the Rey Mysterio segment. There was no reactions to literally anything. No one reacted. No one got up. No one got loud because, number one, nobody cares. It's hard to give reactions and be hype for things that nobody cares about. B-Fab and Piper Niven basically have a mid-match. And it was a bad match. And then it ends up with Chelsea Green and Piper Niven beating up B-Fab. Michin comes out with the kendo stick, and that's that. That's it. There's nothing else to say about this, man. What is there to say about it? Michin stinks. She's an undercard jobber. Chelsea Green's a jobber. Piper Niven's a jobber. And B-Fab, unfortunately, is a jobber. Maybe there's some potential there, but she doesn't do anything every week. She doesn't do anything any week at all. So there you have that. Then we get Kevin Owens versus Rey Mysterio. Very underwhelming match. There was a match earlier this year with Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, and Rey Mysterio in the triple threat #1 contender for who was going to fight Cody at Backlash. And you know what? I thought that match was awesome. I actually thought it was really, really good match. But this match between Owens and Mysterio was very bad. It was sloppy. It was bland. It was a little bit botchy. It was boring. And on top of that, they wrestled extremely slow, and it looked like they were both out of breath and, kind of outpaced during the match. And that just made it a very choppy match that the crowd couldn't really get involved into, besides a couple times Ray tried to rally him up or whatever, but that was pretty much it. Kevin Owens basically ends up winning this match by shoving the ref into the rope, I guess, and then Rey Mysterio kind of fell down. Kevin Owens went up and grabbed him and then pushed him into the rope, did a pop-up powerbomb. 1, 2, 3, your match is over. And that was pretty much that. After the match, KO tried to shake Rey Mysterio's hand and then puts him into a package piledriver position. And then Cody Rhodes' music hit. You get a 1-minute brawl between him and KO, and then Cody just looks dumb around, just kind of stares around, cuts to commercial break. You come back, and Cody Rhodes is backstage again with who else than Nick Aldis. And Nick Aldis basically says that next week at Saturday Night Main Event, remember, a special show that only happens a few times a year, and basically at this special occurrence, this special show, they're going to have a situation where Cody Rhodes is going to have a contract signing with Kevin Owens, and Shawn Michaels in his hometown of San Antonio is going to moderate it. This is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Nobody cares that Shawn Michaels is going to moderate a contract signing. When we get these special shows and these special PLE-like events, these once every month or once every other month kind of events, I'm here for wrestling and storylines in the building of good matches. I'm not here for a contract signing. So who cares? This is it's just a marker of how bad things truly are. You understand what I'm saying? 1.5 million people watch Smackdown now. Back then, at least 2 or 3 million people per pay-per-view were spending $60 to $70 to watch it, and I was one of them. So how in the world are we getting from that point where you had millions of people willing to spend $70 at least once or twice a month in order to watch pay-per-views, but now you can't even get people to watch it for free on cable, or spend $6 a month to get it on Netflix because nobody cares. It really is just embarrassing. I'm sick of hearing the business is booming, all this other nonsense. You used to have 4 million people who would spend $70 to watch a pay-per-view. You don't even have 1.5 million people who will watch your product for free anymore. So don't give me that garbage. It's absolutely ridiculous. Then we get to the next thing that happened, which was basically a bunch of nonsense commercials and ads and commercials and ads. And then we got a random segment with Pretty Deadly backstage that I don't even remember what happened, but Apollo Crews was involved, and I'm sure that means that nobody cares. No offense, but that's just what it is. Now we get to the main event. Tiffany Stratton versus Bayley put on a 20-minute match that was absolutely mediocre. It was mediocre. Before we got to this match, though, we actually had the return of Charlotte Flair. Not the return, but a video promoting her return, which is going to happen soon. They didn't say exactly when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen soon, and this is much needed. Charlotte Flair is one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time, and same with Becky Lynch, and quite frankly, her and Becky and Jade Cargill and Alexa Bliss need to all come back as soon as possible. The women's division needs flair, it needs life injected back into it, and quite frankly, it needs new storylines and it needs new characters to be inside of the division. It just desperately does. Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, and Tiffany Stratton, like Nia Jax, these people cannot carry this division. They're not capable enough. They don't have enough talent. They don't have enough intrigue. They're boring, and they don't cut good promos, and they don't really tell good stories. You know, Bianca Belair and Io Sky are phenomenal. They're amazing at what they do, but it's time for the big dogs to step in. Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Alexa Bliss are coming back. It's time for everyone else to go back to the bench. You know what I'm saying? It just is what it is. Rhea Ripley's not that guy, or should I say in this scenario, not that girl. You know, Liv Morgan is not that girl, and all these other people are just not that girl. You know, Io Sky is the best in-ring performer in the company easily, and Bianca gets her respect too because she's also one of the best in-ring performers in the company. She's consistent, and she actually does know how to cut a promo, you know, unlike a lot of these other people. Her promos aren't amazing, but they're a lot better than pretty much everybody else's except for a couple people, so you have that. But outside of those two, there's nothing to speak of in the women's division. It's absolutely atrocious. Bayley and Tiffany Stratton then go out for the main event, and this is horrendous. It just is. The crowd literally was an indicator that it was horrendous, because here's the thing that I'm realizing about wrestling in general, right? As I mentioned earlier in this video, the crowds are trash. Right? The crowds are just not good because here's the thing. The crowd doesn't understand what actual good wrestling is. So that's why every single show you wonder to yourself, why do we get so many mediocre matches? Why do we get so many bad matches? Why do we get so many dead crowds in certain matches, but then at some point they say this is awesome? It's because no one knows what good wrestling is anymore. At least in these shows and in these crowds, for the most part, no one knows what they're doing anymore, right? The crowd is dead silent for 90% of this Tiffany Stratton versus Bayley match, and then all of a sudden at the end of it, the wrestling ramps up for like 4 minutes, and then Tiffany wins clean and retains her championship. Good. This is cool. You know, this is good. But the problem is this. This is a main event match on Smackdown for the WWE Women's Championship, and the crowd is evaporated for 90% of it. These fans have no idea what they're watching. You know, they're chanting, "This is awesome" for B-Fab versus Piper Niven. Are you kidding me? This is just, like, it's unacceptable at this point. If they're chanting for this, WWE is going to continue to give us more of this, and that's why we're going to continue to get bad content, because apparently Triple H can't judge good wrestling for himself. You know, as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, he surely has no idea what it looks like to be great. Zero idea. You know, it really is just embarrassing, man. But yes, Tiffany Stratton retained. Roxanne Perez was ringside after the little segment she had with Bayley on NXT, which I'm sure nobody saw, but, you know, I saw it on their YouTube, and that was cool, I guess. I mean, you know, she didn't do anything tonight. She was just in the crowd, I guess, and that was that. You know, Tiffany retained, so what? There was a bunch of false finishes and a bunch of like, oh, move, counter, pin, kick out, pin, kick out, pin, kick out. All these false finishes in the last 10 minutes, and there was no reaction to any of them. And I guess that's why Triple H probably called an audible and didn't have Roxanne interfere and just had Tiffany win straight up clean so we could get it over with and get on with the show, because the crowd was so bored and so dead and so uninterested. During the match, everyone's waving around their phone flashlights, basically showing you that they're bored. They're bored. Nobody cares about this garbage. And that's the way I feel about SmackDown. This episode is getting a 1 or a 2 out of 10 at best. At best, it's getting a 1 or a 2 out of 10, and that's the simple facts about it. Let me know what you thought about the show in the comment section below. I thank you all for watching, and as always, I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. Peace out. One love.